Hey guys, this video is for students in propaganda, persuasion, and advertising with Levi or myself, Ryan. If you missed class today, day 27, this is for you. Today we're going over political cartoons and we're looking at the 5 techniques that are most common in political cartoons. So really simply, a political cartoon is just a creative way to express an opinion. And we'll see a few examples coming up. So we're going to go through, if you want to take notes along with the video, there's a packet that you can get from Levi or I that has kind of an organized way that you could jot your ideas down. But here's the first one. Symbolism is really common. It's quite simply just using an object or a symbol to stand for something that's an idea, something bigger. So what you're going to see up here is the first part of text that's right here is a definition. You can write this in your own words. And then below is kind of a tip of how to identify these in cartoons. So basically what you want to do is when you're looking at a cartoon, think about what is the symbol, like what is symbolic, and then what does the symbol mean? Like what is the message of the artist? So common symbols you'll see are these, justice and Lady Liberty for freedom or liberty. Other times we'll see the elephant and the donkey for the political parties. Uncle Sam oftentimes represents the United States. So these are just a few. There's a whole lot. Here's another kind of example of a symbol that I think most of us know. The Grim Reaper represents death. So it's kind of an example where the artist is trying to show us death in a way that's kind of tricky if you really think about it. How do you show your audience what death looks like? And this is a pretty fun and creative way to do it. Okay, number 2 is exaggeration. So that's when a cartoonist overdoes something. They exaggerate or they overemphasize either the characteristics of a person or the characteristics of a thing. And the last thing that's really important not to forget is oftentimes they do this to make a point. So you can kind of take a pause and read the tip about how to spot it. But oftentimes we see this with characteristics about someone's facial features or their body. So oftentimes we'll see President Obama with big ears or Donald Trump with like a big crazy head of yellow hair. Here's one thing to really consider though with exaggeration is ask yourself, what is the purpose of the exaggeration? Why is the artist exaggerating these features? Because sometimes it's to just simply identify who the person is. So oftentimes we'll see President Obama with big ears, and the artist might be kind of making fun that he has big ears, but that's not really the point. The point is really to identify this person who all he is a guy in a suit, to identify him as the president so that we all know who he is. Other times, the exaggeration will be worked into and incorporated into the cartoon, kind of similar, kind of like this Trump cartoon. All right, technique number 3 is labeling. So sometimes, this is the simplest technique in my opinion, sometimes it's unclear to the viewer who the person is or what the thing is. So sometimes if the symbolism isn't very clear, the cartoonist will literally just label the object. And here's a few, there's a few examples coming up that I'll show you in a minute. So for example, here. So we have a boat going towards an iceberg. If you can imagine this without the words, it's literally just a boat going towards an iceberg. It doesn't really mean anything until you have the labels that the boat represents our economy in the United States. And then the iceberg represents the deficit and the debit. Or the debt. And you can see that this is not only using labeling, other techniques that we've used, that we've heard so far, it's also using symbolism. So the whole symbol of an iceberg is something you only see the top and you don't know how much is below is also part of the message for this. So that's labeling, really straightforward, and we'll see more of those. Okay, now these last 2 are tricky. Number 4 is analogy. So that's when you compare 2 unlike things that share some characteristics. And the idea is this, guys. When you're taking something really complex like the economy, you want to break it down and make it simple for people to understand. So that's the whole idea of an analogy. So for example, the economy is really, really complex. All the money changing hands in our country every day is really, really complex. But if I wanted to communicate that the economy is strong, I might use this bull. Or if I want to communicate that it's fragile, it might be like this house of cards, like a touch or a blow could send the whole thing crashing down. I could also communicate that maybe it's like a ship that's slowly sinking, or maybe the economy is like a fragile young plant that needs to be cared for and is fragile as well. Another thing that you could say is that the economy is like dying out, whatever it is, whatever your point is, and it's flatlining like this EEG. Another way you can use analogies is like using using something that people understand, like these kind of analogies for it's kind of a symbol and an analogy about like a liar, right? Pinocchio, every time he lies, his nose grows, or the whole expression of pants on fire. You could also describe the campaign like a cat fight or like a fight between children, if you want to watch this video, this is helpful to help explain what an analogy is. The video is more about in writing, but it totally applies to our application of cartoons. The last but not least is irony. So irony is basically stating the difference between the way things are in reality, the way they actually are, and then the way that they should be, or the way that they're expected to be. So you can check this video out by accessing the slide deck in Classroom. But here's a few examples of irony. So in these cartoons, the artist, they're actually different artists, is trying to kind of highlight how this is the reality. Like this is the everyday. This is the everyday. Like people are littering. But, on this one Earth Day, people kind of behave differently. So you might ride your bike and go to the farmer's market one day, but the next day you're driving your car and emitting pollutants into the ozone. Or you might show up to an Earth Day rally, but the irony is you might also litter, which is kind of counter to the whole idea of Earth Day, obviously. Here's another one, another ad showing irony. If you guys remember Sarah Palin, she kind of ran on this conservative ideals, which included, not having sex education in schools and teaching abstinence only. But in the middle of her campaign, her daughter had an unplanned pregnancy. So it's kind of pointing out the difference between the reality of her ideas and what actually is the result of those methods, according to the artist. Here's another one where we have a man representing the GOP, which is the Senate GOP, which is the Republican Party in the Senate. And then the boat represents the deficit, and we can see that the boat's sinking, but you'd expect that this guy would be more concerned with the alligator behind him, but he's not. He's more concerned with the cat in front. And that's another really simple way that I like to think about irony, is it's almost like what happens is the opposite of what you would think would happen. So you would think this guy would be terrified of the alligator behind him, not the like harmless cat in front of him. So it's kind of like a flip. In the video, if you watch it, they use the example of, we expect, if there's a dog and a cat, we expect the dog to chase the cat. But it would be ironic if that flipped and the cat chased the dog instead. Here's a few more examples I just want to show you guys. Here's a few examples using exaggeration, using labeling. Here's a few more symbols, the elephant and the donkey, and they actually reinforce it even more by using some labels down here. Here's another one that I don't think I'll take much time to explain, but if you flip through the slideshow, there's quite a few different examples of political cartoons. And the goal for this is just to identify what techniques are being used. And very commonly, we're going to see multiple techniques being used at the same time. Some cartoons use all 5 techniques, but I would say with certainty that you'll almost always find 2 or more techniques in every political cartoon. The one thing that we did not get to, and I'm not going to be able to get to in this video, is an example, a historical example here. So